madashell27052010.mp4.
There are 1.4 million people who care for a family member with a severe disability. Now, that means there are around 700,000 unpaid full-time caregivers. Now, this can be a career and marriage-ending decision, and families just have to adjust for a different kind of normal life. But in the face of despair, ordinary people achieve the extraordinary. So let's meet an inspirational family, the Buller family.
9-year-old Kai loves mucking around with his younger brother Yasha, playing with his pet chooks and dreams of being an actor. He's a special little kid for many reasons, but he suffers from a rare genetic disorder with similar symptoms to cerebral palsy.
When Kai was about a year old, we realised that the development was different from other children, and in the end we had an assessment done, and of course we got sent home and said, yeah, well, something's not quite the way it should be. And I think deep down we knew, we just didn't want to know about it.
Heike gave up a successful career as an academic to become full-time carer of Kai, 7-year-old Yasha, and 4-year-old Billy, who was also diagnosed with Kai's mystery disorder.
Second time round was pretty hard. I remember coming back from being told by someone that, yes, it is the same. And I had to pull over the car, and I just had to have a cry. And I think I cried for about 2 days. And then I went, well, that's just the way it is. We've done it all before. We know what we need to do. Let's just do it.
The Buller family have had to make a number of modifications to their house and car with very little financial assistance from the government. And they face many challenges that other families don't.
It would be really nice to be able to go shopping without being stared at and unload my kids from the car without being told that this is disabled parking, you know. They're expecting an old man or an old lady to come out of the car, but people, you know, children have disabilities too.
The government does provide carers for families like the Bullers. However, because a different carer is provided each time, for the benefit of the kids, the Bullers prefer to employ their own nanny at their own expense.
I have chosen to have someone that I know and I trust because in essence I don't want to be a carer. I am a mother of 2 disabled children and I'm a mother of 3 children, and all 3 of these children need me to be their mother and not to be their carer.
A remarkable family. They're not alone. There's more than 10,000 people across the country that have signed the Mad as Hell campaign. It's aiming for more funding, better care for Australia's disabled population and their carers. I'm joined by the Mad as Hell co-founder, Sue O'Reilly. Good morning, Sue.
Good morning.
Sue, your story. You have a 21-year-old severely disabled son. Just explain the challenges day-to-day life.
I suppose the main challenge is that it's just 24/7 really. It's through the night and it's all through the day as well, so which is not uncommon. So people can't really go 24/7 year after year, decade after decade.
And as I said before, there are some 700,000 carers out there.
Full-time, unpaid.
Full-time, unpaid, because you have to walk away from other lives and other careers to do this. And you do this because you love people and you need to care for them.
Absolutely.
If those 700,000 people emotionally and physically could not care for their loved one, what would happen?
A complete crisis. Australia's actually got a demographic time bomb because there are lots of very severely disabled people in their 40s and 50s still at home full-time with usually mothers in their 70s and 80s, and even the best carer can't keep caring when they're dead. So, and there's no planning at the moment. There's nothing in place for where do these tens of thousands of really severely disabled people go when their carers die.
Tell me about the Mad as Hell campaign.
It was started by another journalist and a journalist called Fiona Porter, and also the mum of a son with cerebral palsy. We just both thought, how can we best get the message over to the politicians that, number one, there are a lot of us. Number 2, we are in dire need. Number 3, we're completely fed up.
What do you want?
We want them to all the major parties commit to the introduction of a national disability insurance scheme, because that actually is the answer.
But also in the last budget, for instance, as I said, 700,000 carers, they've had to walk away from other lucrative jobs to do this. What help did carers and people with disabilities get in the last budget and the budget before?
Well, nothing. Everything's sort of a bit on hold because the government's asked the Productivity Commission in Canberra to study a national disability insurance scheme, but there's 18 months of basically a vacuum.
You know, disability scheme is one area, important as it is, but regular day-to-day, week-to-week, year-to-year help in the last, and this is successive governments, by the way, that have been delinquent in this.
40 years.
Yeah, but certainly in the last several. Has there been any increase for carers and people with disability?
Yes, the New South Wales government has introduced something called Stronger Together. It got so horrific about 4 or 5 years ago. They actually had to put more money in, but because the system, the basic system is really badly designed, a lot of it gets wasted, and as taxpayers, all Australians should be really concerned.
Indeed. But if those 700,000 carers walked away, the system would be just diabolical. But when you see things like, you know, I read this week, foreign aid. Now, we're a generous country. Third world countries need help too. But they're doubling our foreign aid. How does that make you feel?
Well,
We're talking from 400 to 800 million or billion or something. What does that say to you about how Australian politicians feel about their own?
Well, it's very bad messages about what Australians think about people with disabilities, what Australian politicians think. Why does Australia have the worst disability support system in the Western world? I'd be very interested to know why, and it really is far and away the worst.
But we seem pretty generous with other countries.
Yeah, well, and I'm someone who believes in being generous to, you know, poor third world countries, but why should Australians with disabilities and their carers be living in third world conditions?
And that's what they are living in.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So there's 3 years wait for a wheelchair.
3 years for a wheelchair?
Yeah. Mad as Hell was contacted by someone whose son died with extremely severe pain, needed a new wheelchair, had an 18-month wait for an urgent appointment and died in hospital from lung complications a day before the appointment came through.
Terrible, tragic, terrible to think about. OK, Mad as Hell, 10,000 signatures. Are you going to get a reaction here? Yes,
well, we've got 13 now. The 10 was a couple of weeks ago, and yes, the political parties have already started to
well, if it moves at the ballot box, you've got half a chance.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're aiming for?
Well, I think it's the only thing the politicians really take any notice of.
Well, if they care and if Australians care, they'll give this great consideration. Thank you, Sue Riley, for giving us your perspective this morning.
Thank you, Kerri-Anne.
There you go. We've got more coming up. The information, by the way, for Mad as Hell campaign, just go to the website if you'd like to give them a hand. OK, coming up, celebrity red carpet disasters. You should see some of these outfits. Video games, not just for the little ones. We're going to show you what the big kids are playing next.